By my count, we have 10 members in attendance, and we're waiting on up to 4 more.
Okay. Well, we'll give them another minute or so. All right, Jeremy, if you and Winston are ready, I'm going to call this meeting to order.
We have a quorum.
Okay, so I want to call this meeting of the Kentucky Housing Corporation to order, and thank you all for your attendance. Jeremy has confirmed a quorum, and Jeremy, you have given press notice, right?
We have, yes, sir. And it appears we do not have any public participation today.
No public participation. Okay. All right. So the next item on the agenda is consideration and approval of the minutes of the meeting held February 24th. I'm sure that everyone's had an opportunity to look those minutes over. Are there any additions or corrections? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Then I'll second. This is George.
Okay, thank you, George. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Okay, so the next item of business is the inducement resolution for the flats at Bardstown. And Sam Thorner, I think you're going to do that for us. So I'll yield to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Flats at Bardstown Apartments project is requesting bonding authority in an amount not to exceed $20,200,000. The project involves the acquisition and new construction of 192 units at 2100 Buckel Bank Road, 2044 Buckel Bank Road, 4134 Bardstown Road, and 4144 Bardstown Road in Jefferson County, Kentucky. The project will serve 96 households at or below 50% area median income, 52 households at or below 60% area median income, and 44 households at or below 80% area median income. The 192 units will consist of 36 one-bedroom units, 72 two-bedroom units, and 84 three-bedroom units. As the financing for the project progresses, the Board of Directors of Kentucky Housing Corporation must also authorize the issuance and sale of tax-exempt bonds to the approval of a separate final resolution. KHC staff has reviewed the preliminary submittals of the applicant and recommends approval by the Board of Directors of the Kentucky Housing Corporation of an inducement resolution authorizing the tax-exempt financing of the Flats at Bardstown Apartments project. And I forgot to mention, but the development team is available in the packet that you received.
Okay. Thank you, Sam. Any members have any questions of Sam or comments that he'd like to make? All right. If not, I'll entertain a motion that this inducement resolution be approved.
Steve will make a motion.
Okay. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
All right. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Okay, Sam. So the next item is the authorization to enter into a personal service contract with Gibson. So will you tell us about that, please?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Kentucky Housing Corporation seeks approval to enter into a personal service contract with Gibson Consulting LLC for market analysis services for its multifamily programs for fiscal year 2023 in an amount not to exceed $40,000. In our administration of the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Program, the Home Investment Partnerships Program, rural housing, and various other U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development programs, KHC must adhere to strict performance and reporting requirements which necessitate a variety of market analysis services. Following a request for proposals process in March of this year, Gibson was selected by a review committee to provide market analysis services. Kentucky Housing Corporation has the option of renewing the contract for 2 consecutive years following the initial term of the contract. KHC staff recommend approval by the Board of Directors of the Kentucky Housing Corporation of a resolution authorizing KHC to enter into a personal service contract with Gibson Consulting in an amount not to exceed $40,000 for fiscal year 2023.
Okay, so Sam, as I understand it, your federal partners basically require this marketing analysis. Is that right?
Yes. So when developers submit applications for financing under our various programs, they are required to provide us with a market study. So we contract for services of experts to provide analysis of the market studies that are submitted to us.
Okay. Any members have any questions of Sam? If not, I'll entertain a motion that we approve this service contract.
Holly.
Thank you, Holly. Do I have a second?
This is George. I'll second it.
Thank you, George. All right, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Okay, Sam, you're up again. So this is another personal service contract with Valbridge. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So it's a similar situation with some additional responsibilities that this contractor would be services that they would be providing us. So KHC seeks to enter into a personal service contract with Valbridge Property Advisors for both rent comparability studies, review services for its tenant assistance program, and for market analysis services for multifamily programs for fiscal year 2023 in an amount not to exceed $60,000. So in addition to what I described with the Gibson contract, this contractor under KHC's contract with U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, we are required to have a state certified general appraiser to review and verify the information submitted to KHC in the form of a rent comparability study. So this contractor, in addition to the market analysis services, would be reviewing the rent comparability for our tenant assistance programs. They went through the same request for proposal process back in March, and we selected Valbridge under that process. KHC has the option to renew the personal service contract for 2 consecutive years following the initial term of the contract. KHC staff again recommends approval by the Board of Directors of the Kentucky Housing Corporation of a resolution authorizing KHC to enter into the personal service contract with Valbridge Property Advisors in an amount not to exceed $60,000 for fiscal year 2023.
Okay, thank you, Sam. Any members have any questions of Sam? If not, I'll entertain a motion that we approve this personal service contract.
Motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Sam, thank you so much for your hard work on these.
Thank you, Mr.
All
Chair.
right. Okay, so John Davidson, you're up next with a personal service contract with Hannah Consulting Services.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, members of the board. This is agenda item 6, resolution number 19. Agenda item authorization to renew a personal service contract with Hannah Resource Group in an amount not to exceed $21,600 to provide consulting services in compensation evaluation and planning and succession planning for fiscal year 2023. Following the request for approval process in 2020, KHC selected HRG to provide HR services, consulting services. KHC has the option to renew the contract for 2 consecutive years following the initial RFP solicitation and evaluation process. This will be the second renewal. Staff is respectfully asking that the Board of Directors of Kentucky Housing Corporation adopt resolution authorizing the renewal of the personal service contract with Hannah Resource Group LLC in an amount not to exceed $21,600 for HR consulting services for the fiscal year 2023.
Okay. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
All right, so any members have any questions of John on this? If not, I'll entertain a motion that we approve this personal service contract.
This is
Motion.
Chad. I'll make that motion.
Okay, I have a motion by Chad, a second.
Susan, so moved.
Thank you, Susan. Oh, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Okay, Kevin Field, personal service contract for Regulatory Solutions LLC.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the board's consideration is resolution number 20, whereby staff request authorization to enter into a personal service contract to perform quality control review services in accordance with Fannie Mae, FHA, VA, and RHS regulatory requirements for both the single family mortgage department as well as the loan servicing department. So following a request for proposals this past February, Regulatory Solutions was selected by the review committee to provide quality control review services. And KHC also has the option of renewing the contract for an additional 2 consecutive years following this initial term. So I would be glad to answer any questions you may have. Otherwise, KHC recommends approval by the Board of Directors, authorizing the corporation to enter into a personal service contract with Regulatory Solutions for quality control review services for fiscal year 2023 in an amount not to exceed $165,000.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Any members have any questions of Kevin about this contract? If not, I'll entertain a motion that we approve the contract. Somebody?
I'll move. This Holly.
Okay, thanks, Holly. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate your effort on this. Okay, so next up is Jim Statler. And Jim, I'm sure you've been waving your magic wand on the barn market. So we're going to turn this over to you to talk about a personal service contract with BOX.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, everybody. Agenda item number 8 is seeking authorization to renew a personal service contract with BLX Group for arbitrage rebate calculation services. KHC requires services to perform arbitrage rebate calculation services on non-purpose investments. The IR Internal Revenue Code requires ongoing 5-year period calculations to determine if there were any earnings in excess of the yield on a bond series that would be required to be addressed or rebated to United States Department of Treasury. Due to the small contract amount, no RFP was required in 2022. Instead, KHC is renewing the personal service contract that we've been operating under for a 3rd consecutive year following the initial contract term. KHC recommends approval by the board of a resolution authorizing the corporation to renew a personal service contract with BLX Group LLC for arbitrage rebate calculation services for fiscal 2023 in an amount not to exceed $1,250. And just by way of information, We have one tax plan that we're going to pay off in fiscal 23. If we could have gotten away with paying it off in 22, we would have, but we couldn't. So we have one tax plan that will get paid off in fiscal 2023, which will require an end of term rebate calculation by BLX for the $1,250.
Okay, Jim, thank you. Any members have any questions of Jim about this personal service contract? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve it.
This is George. I'll move.
Thanks, George. Do I have a second?
This is Susan. I'll second.
Thanks, Susan. All right, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, motion carries. Jim, you're up again. You got another one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Agenda item number 9 is seeking authorization to enter into a personal service contract with Kane Minter and Associates Incorporated for quantitative consulting services. KHC requires the services of a quantitative consulting firm to perform the following: bond structure and analysis, mortgage and investment portfolio participation analysis, flow of funds compliance, and cash flow projections. Following an RFP process in February of 2022, Kane Minter and Associates Incorporated was selected by the review committee to perform quantitative services. Kane Minter and Associates Incorporated was the sole responding party to the RFP. We have the option to renewing this contract for 2 consecutive years following the initial term of the contract. Again, by way of information, Kane Minter's been our quant service corp since I've been here, which is over 10 years, and they were here several years prior to that. So it's an organization that we're quite familiar with and quite comfortable with and quite satisfied with. Management recommends approval by the Board of Directors of Kentucky Housing Corporation of a resolution authorizing the corporation to enter into a personal service contract with Kane Minter and Associates for the fiscal year 2023 in an amount not to exceed $400,000 for quantitative consulting services.
And Jim, if I understand this correct, those quantitative consulting services are required by your partners, right? Your federal partners.
Included in this fee is any assistance we require from quant services to issue new bonds, to analyze bonds that are eligible or potentially eligible for refunding or advanced payoff. And they also prepare all the cash flows that keep the rating agencies satisfied as to the security of the overall indenture and preservation of our AAA rating on bonds.
Okay, thank you. Do any other members have any questions of Jim regarding this contract? If not, I'll entertain a motion that we approve it.
It's PG making the motion.
Thank you, PG. I have a second.
This is Barry. I'll second that.
Okay, thank you, Barry. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, motion carries. Okay, thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
All right, so Wendy Smith. Wendy, you're up. You're going to talk about KPMG and the personal service contract you have with them.
Yes, sir. And my apologies for not having video. I cannot get my camera to work, and you all would think I would have mastered it over the last 2 years, but today it's not functioning for me. My apologies.
I'm really glad, Wendy, somebody else has trouble other than me. makes me feel better.
So I have 2 items on the agenda. The first is a resolution authorizing KHC to amend its existing contract with KPMG for the services they are providing in processing healthy at home eviction relief applications. So we have had a contract with them to process alongside our existing staff. So we do this work too. We just needed them to help us get over our backlog and be able to process in real time. They have managed that, and we wanted to do one more extension through the end of the fiscal year, so through the end of June 30th, just to keep them running. We don't necessarily expect to use all of this amount. We just didn't want to have to come back again right before the end of the fiscal year. So this is, again, an existing contract. We amended it already once, so this would be the second amendment to expand the potential work they might do for us. And in particular, we may have them do some file cleanup and some other documentation. as we close out our Emergency Rental Assistance 1.0 grant and move into ERA 2 funding. So with respect, I request that the board approve this second amendment to that contract.
Okay, everybody, anybody have any questions of Wendy about this KPMG contract? They've been an integral force of getting this money out. And so if there are no questions, I'd entertain a motion. We approve it.
So move. Second.
All right, got a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, like sign, motion carries. Okay.
Thank you all so much.
All right, so Wendy, talk about the Home Eviction Relief Fund and the Western Kentucky Disaster Response, which are so critical today. And if you would let us know about where we are on those things, please.
Absolutely. And I should have some slides to be shared. I'm not seeing them. Are you all seeing them?
Yes.
They're up. Yes.
Okay, I must not have the right view option. Okay, my apologies. We've got an update for you all on the Healthy at Home Eviction Relief Program. So we have brought several updates to you all on this. This is a rent and utility assistance program that we fund right now through a Treasury grant under Emergency Rental Assistance 1.0. It's COVID relief funding. So we're just giving you all an update. We are about 13, 14 months in. We launched in February of last year. And since then, KHC itself has paid out $137.4 million in rent and utility assistance. This comes to almost 42,000 individual payments that have gone out on behalf of over 30,000 households across the state. And again, we've been operating this program in 118 counties across the state. The average amount per household's been going down. It was closer to $6,000 per household early on. It's now at a little over $4,500 per household in terms of the average assistance. So to get $137 million out at $4,500 per household, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of households. The average that we are paying out each month right now is $10.5 million. That's a pretty good clip for a modestly sized state. In terms of our overall grants, so this Emergency Rental Assistance 1.0, the original grant was $264 million. Came to us in January, came to the Finance Cabinet in January of last year. We subgranted $38.7 million to Louisville and Lexington. We then reallocated a second $38.7 million to Louisville and Lexington. That became part of their grants, and that was just money to keep their local programs going. Again, we have paid out ourselves $137.4 million. We've used a little over $12 million for administrative costs. That's not even 5% of the grant in total. And so when you add all of that together, we have committed, expended, subgranted, reallocated $227 million. That's 87% of the grant, which is a pretty good rate within just a little over a year. We still have about $27 million left, but again, we're going at a pretty good monthly clip, and we expect to transition to Emergency Rental Assistance 2.0 very soon. And I just want to give you all a map, and then there's a graph on the next slide that kind of shows you, I really feel like we're punching above our weight in terms of how well we've done in getting the assistance out to Kentuckians relative to our state size. So we rank 18th in the country in terms of ERA 1 expenditure rates by state, but we rank 26th by population in the country. So again, I feel like we're outpacing our size, if you will. Especially when you consider we don't have the concentration of renters that some states might. So we are really outpacing ourselves in many ways. If you go to the next slide is just a graphic version of the same ranking showing where we stand. And what I'll point out is that you'll see at the top of this graph, there are several large states that are totally out of all of their ERA 1 funding. Some of them at the very top are also out of all of their ERA 2 funding. So I feel like, again, we're punching above our weight and we're doing pretty well for a moderately sized state. I'll pause there in case any board members have questions about emergency rental assistance.
I just want to add that the Institute for Economic Equity of the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis is doing a two-part. The first part's out. Effective deployment of Louisville's ERA funding, lessons learned, which I think contributes to Kentucky's success and the wise allocation to Louisville and Lexington. And you can see that at the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. So yeah, everybody's done a great job.
Thanks, Kathy. And you pointing that out highlights, we partnered a lot with Louisville and Lexington in upfront design, getting them more funds, troubleshooting. We shared documents. It was really a great partnership. When you have good existing relationships and you have plenty of funding, it's really easy to collaborate well. So I feel like it was a success story.
Yeah, Wendy, just let me compliment you and your staff for a wonderful job for this home eviction relief fund and what you all have done. I mean, this has been an unbelievable undertaking, and y'all really done a great job with it. And I also would also say, before you talk about the Western Kentucky disaster response, I just want to say that to the board members, I called Winston early on December the 11th, early in the morning, and Wendy and KHC already had a team on the ground working on that disaster. So I think this all shows just what kind of people that are work for KHC, and they represent KHC and the state very well. So Wendy, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Mike, I appreciate that. And I just want to, I know you all know this, but I want to make sure that it's clear that it's not like it's Winston and I that do this alone. There are so many great staff here at KHC that have gone the extra mile and taken on work they never thought they'd be doing, be it rent assistance direct to folks or tornado response. So your appreciative words are well received. I appreciate that. So I will share with you all just a quick update on what KHC is doing with relationship to the tornado response, and then what we think we might be doing in the future. This is just a map that I get one of these twice a week from FEMA and Kentucky Emergency Management. Just kind of shows you those red lines are the hardest hit communities, that got hit by the tornado. It was very expansive. You can go to the next slide. I thought I would share with you all a little bit of data just about like what we're seeing right now and what the numbers look like. So this is the number of folks that are in non-congregate sheltering. That means, because of the pandemic, they didn't do the big massive shelters that the Red Cross typically does. They housed folks in hotels and at our state parks, which was a real asset for Kentucky, that people could go to the state parks. And at its peak, there were over 1,400 folks in non-congregate shelter. There are now just 160 people. That's not households, that's people in state parks or in hotels in Western Kentucky. This is just a graph that shows you by county, how many folks are in the red numbers at the top are the number of people. So of course, Graves County, where Mayfield is, really hit the hardest, but Hopkins County and Warren County also have pretty significant numbers of folks still in non-congregate shelter. And then this is a chart that, and we can of course get this to you all. This is the Red Cross's damage assessment for home ownership and rental units, county by county. And what I'll highlight is what's highlighted in yellow, that total number of housing units that have major damage or were destroyed. And as you can see, it's really significant for Graves County, it's 5%. The total number of major damage or destroyed is over 2,600 housing units. And that is just a radical number of homes and apartments lost in Western Kentucky. I do not have a breakdown of how many were homeowner and how many were rental. The Red Cross did not do that, but this data was really useful in helping us just understand the scope of units that are either going to require a phenomenal amount of money or that have just been lost to the housing stock. This is that same data just shown as the percentage of occupied housing units. So again, in Graves County, 5% of all occupied housing units were majorly damaged or destroyed. And according to Kentucky Emergency Management, 5% or more is catastrophic. 2% or more is really, really significant damage. So not a surprise to any of you, I'm sure, but just kind of underlining how severe the damage is for a lot of the communities in Western Kentucky. And that for a lot of folks, even though they've lost a unit, they still don't want to move from that community. And those communities want to keep their population. So again, overall, 4,100 homes roughly were impacted, and over 2,600 had major damage or were destroyed, according to the Red Cross. There are some real barriers to the rebuilding process. There's supply chain constraints that are happening across the country. We have a lot of uninsured or underinsured homeowners. There's a big question about, will the market return for rental units in the same places that they were lost? And we only have a couple of nonprofit partners in Western Kentucky. So, growing their capacity, particularly Habitat for Humanity organizations, it's really hard to, they might do 10 units a year and we might need them to do 50 to 100. That's a tall order in terms of growing capacity. In some areas, the building codes really don't allow for tiny homes or mobile homes, yet folks might want to move one on their property. And they don't have enough building inspectors locally. Their building inspectors their staff is sized to do a handful of inspections, maybe a week, let alone, tens and tens and tens daily or weekly. So those are some real constraints they're facing. Okay, so that's a snapshot of the challenge and just the devastation that Western Kentucky's gone through. Here's what KHC has done so far. The first thing we did was assemble an inventory of available apartments, and so that if somebody was looking for a unit, they had a list they could search by county or by bedroom type, and we put that online and in a printable format. We also inventoried damaged properties that are in our portfolio. We fund and finance a lot of multifamily projects and had a little over 200 units totally lost or majorly damaged in the tornado. 212, I think, is the count we have. We meet weekly with Kentucky Emergency Management and actually several other state agencies to coordinate our response and what we're doing and learn what's needed. We've also met with a bunch of our Western Kentucky partners, and in particular, we have given more money to some of our homelessness partners who already had grants, and we could just add to that grant so that they had more funds to help folks. We also recently funded 2 habitats out in Western Kentucky to do home building, and they have funds to do home repair. We fund them usually most years anyway, so we just wanted to make sure that they had sufficient funding to keep going. We are also, the Public Housing Authority in Dawson Springs lost a lot of units. That rent assistance sits as funding at HUD, so it is being converted into a special kind of Section 8 voucher that those tenants can use to go rent another unit. And we are administering those because the Dawson Springs Public Housing Authority does not do vouchers. They just own, actual brick and mortar units. So we're going to administer those for them. We are participating in a handful of HUD disaster recovery fairs where we'll have a booth offering different kinds of assistance and information about our programs. And we recently have begun meeting with the case management service providers, Catholic Charities of Owensboro and United Way of Bowling Green, to talk about individual households and what they need, what kind of housing issues they're having, to try to figure out what solutions we have that can help them get out of hotels, state parks, in some cases out of tents, out of being doubled or tripled up with family. And you can scroll through these. This is just some snapshots of the website we have where we built the inventory, just to give you all a sense of that. You can keep going. And so here are the roles we foresee, playing in Western Kentucky. We anticipate that we will, provide additional funding or financing for the rebuilding or repairing of multifamily projects and single-family homes, and or building new rental units and new homes, even if it's not rebuilding an existing unit, just to replenish the supply of housing in Western Kentucky. This might be done with some of our regular funds. We would love to have additional funds because, that we would hate to cut into the existing pie. We really are going to need more for Western Kentucky. And we would expect that the Department of Local Government and KHC will partner. It was announced that they are going to be awarded $75 million in what's called Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery Funds. That's for the flooding in Eastern Kentucky as well as the Western Kentucky tornado. And those dollars can be used for many, many, many types of rebuilding, including home ownership, single family houses, and multifamily projects. So we could weave those into our existing funding rounds. And I will pause there. I am done. But if board members have questions about that, I'm happy to answer what I can.
Do any members have any questions of Wendy's in regard to that? Wendy, could you get us those slides so we could have those, look at those, study those a little bit more? Maybe?
Absolutely. I think you'll probably want Jamie's slides that are coming up next too, so we'll make sure they get out to all the board members.
And one question I have, Wendy, what about contractors down there? I have a customer that's a contractor that's been going down there from time to time, and he tells me that their contractors are almost non-existent. They just can't find enough contractors. Is that accurate?
Yes, yeah. I kind of filed that under the supply chain issue, but it sits next to supply chain. Mike, it is definitely an issue that there are not enough contractors. And then there's also a worry that there might be some ill-intentioned folks that come in and offer to do work who may not be licensed or good quality, and that the struggle to find anybody might make folks accept someone who's not going to do good work for them.
Yeah. Yeah, anytime that anything like this happens, there's always somebody, unscrupulous people trying to put roofs on houses and that type of thing. We've experienced that up here.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a great presentation. Any members have any questions of Wendy? Wendy, thank you so much for your effort and your hard work, and please thank all your folks for the good work you do for us.
Will do. Thank you.
Okay, so Jamie Rice, you're going to talk about Homeowner Assistance Fund. Is that correct?
That is. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you everyone for the opportunity to update you on the Homeowner Assistance Fund that KHC is administering. As a reminder, we received $85.4 million from U.S. Treasury COVID relief funds in order to assist homeowners experiencing COVID-related financial hardships. Just as a reminder, I updated the board initially in August and again in December. Since then, we did receive our full Treasury approval right before Christmas. We fully launched our pilot involving our housing counseling network. On February 7th, the governor announced the full statewide launch of our program, and we invited about 11,000 email registrants to take a look, and we had a huge swell in the very beginning of applications. Not all of the 11,000 were homeowners trying to apply, but we also had lenders in that group, servicers, counselors, just folks who were curious, but we did receive an initial swell of applications. On March the 2nd, we did submit our first official report to Treasury. That was for activity through January 31st of this year, and we had a whopping 25 homeowners to report on at that time. And just as a reminder, qualifying this program will cover up to $35,000 per household. It is a non-recourse grant. There are income limits of who we can serve. And the qualifying expenses we can pay are mortgage reinstatements, up to 6 months of mortgage payments, non-escrowed property taxes and homeowners insurance, past due homeowners association dues, and past due utilities. Next slide, please, Jeremy. So we are getting ready to submit our next report to Treasury. That is due mid-May, and that's for activity through March 31st. So what we will report to Treasury there is that we've now assisted a total of 184 households. We are working through that swell of applications. Of that, we do report on the households that we serve who are categorized as socially disadvantaged households. That is defined as minority homeowners, limited English proficiency homeowners, and homeowners who are residing in counties that are of persistent poverty rates that meet or exceed 20%. And we have, in Kentucky, we've got 37 of those counties. So of the 184 homeowners we've served through March 31st, 74 do fall within that socially disadvantaged category, which is 40%. Through March 31st, we have funded mortgage reinstatements, monthly mortgage assistance. One person has received past due homeowners association dues, and we've paid utility assistance. I will say that was through March 31st. Our current active pipeline that we're working through, we have 1,590 applications, and the loans of the cases that we've closed through April 24th is 288 now. So we are picking up steam and working through that initial application. We are getting a lot of applications for folks who are applying because of inflation and, groceries and gas being more, we're all feeling it, but that's not a qualifying event for this funding. So in terms of funds that we have obligated versus expended, we've obligated about 2.8 million. We've expended 1.8 million of that through March 31st. And you'll see the biggest difference between the two columns falls within that monthly mortgage payment assistance. And that's because we pay that over the course of 6 months. That does not go out the door right away. I think that's all. It's a quick, I knew I was toward the end of the agenda, so I kept it concise. Any questions?
Yeah, this is Kathy. Do you have a breakdown by county, and even better, since you have addresses, by census tract?
Not census tracts, Kathy. We did not build that into the technology. By county, we would have.
I say that because in Jefferson County and in Lexington, race is I would know just by looking at census tracts where things are going. And are female-headed households considered in the 40%? Female-headed households with children?
No.
Okay.
No,
I'm sure those are definitions that the feds gave you, right?
I'm not sure female. I'll have to go back and look at that. There were 6 different categories.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Can I get it by county? And
yes.
And if someone at like U of L was willing to put it into census tracts, would you provide for research purposes? Would you, with confidentiality, but just
right
here on a map, adhering to all of that? Would you, set up? Well, we can discuss that if that's something
Sure.
Yeah.
I would say anything like that. If you would run it through Winston and anything that is needed, we'll be happy to provide.
Sorry, Winston, I just heard about this, and I have a lot of contacts at U of L, the state data center, for instance, and they know all about confidentiality.
Absolutely. So let's talk about it further and see what we can do to make that happen.
Jamie, could we get copies of these slides as well?
Absolutely.
Okay. I want to thank you all and you and your team for your excellent work on this.
I have one more question. Is there money left?
Oh,
are you going to be covered by all these people, because I read the CJ every day, and they need to do a nice article with real clear stuff. They aren't touting this. And I know you were just starting in February. This is not an indictment or anything, but as you've gotten your sea legs, it would be great to have a really nice article.
I'll say our sea legs are still coming. We're still working through that pipeline of almost 1,600 applications. So we purposefully have not been as aggressive with marketing as the HHERF, because anyone who applies right now is going to sit and they're going to be frustrated. So we're trying to get through that initial, just get it at a better, smoother running rate. But we've had to add staff. The counselors have added people. if you'll remember, we administered the hardest hit fund program during the Great Recession, and the pipeline we have now for the homeowner assistance fund is greater than we ever had under HHF. But then again, we are getting a lot of applications for folks that are understandably feeling the pinch of inflation, but it takes time to work through those to get to the ones who were impacted by COVID. But we're working through that, and we do have plans to market. This money is around through September 30th of 2025.
Jamie, thank you so much. Do any other members have any questions of Jamie? Well, Jamie, thank you for your hard work. We appreciate you. Okay. All right. So informational items is the next item on the agenda, and with that, I'm going to turn that over to Winston. Winston, do you have anything you want to talk about today?
Well, absolutely. We have two items that are informational items that, so we've got two separate reports on items that are going to be presented to the board. The first one is going to be presented by Jim Statler, and the genesis of this report sort of arises out of a conversation that we had with you, Mike, a couple of weeks ago. And in one of our sort of periodic updates and chat with you about what's going on in the world, you were asking me some questions that I was struggling with in terms of the impact of and trying to quantify really the impact of the interest rate increases and the war in Ukraine on the bond market, and then therefore on the housing market, and how all these are sort of tied together. And Mike, you'll recall you and I had a very informative conversation with Jim, and I decided following that call that this is some information we ought to share with the full board, which I'm not sure everybody appreciates. This is, a top of the pyramid report. It's not going to be perhaps the same detailed information you might get from your financial advisor or others, but I think you'll find it very insightful. Jim, are you on?
I am. Thank you. Yes, and though I am reading from a prepared text to keep me from wandering off on some tangent, please ask questions as you have them. First off, though I may have some expertise in finance, particularly mortgage finance, I am not an economist. So we just want to set that clear. No, leave it there, Jeremy, if you would, please. Thank you. On this first chart, these three headlines appeared on page 2 of last Friday's Wall Street Journal. One page, 3 good headlines here. Powell talked rates in general. Translation, KHC's cost of borrowing will increase. We have $82 million of variable rate bonds. Each 1% increase in short-term rates impacts the bottom line of the indenture by $820,000. Mortgage rates rise. Translation, loan production volume impacted. Higher mortgage rates generally result in lower production levels. We are carefully considering our loan volume budget for next year. A silver lining, payoffs may actually finally slow down. Jobless claims stay low. Translation, tight labor market. Translation, inflation. Tight labor market put upward pressure on inflation and costs to run the business. Except for the possible slowdown in payoffs, all 3 headlines are generally negative to KHC's financial performance. Much of executive management's time is spent looking out and forward 5+ years and trying to design strategies that enable us to create and retain financial resources to afford our missional objectives. 5 years ago, it was how to maximize current cash flows to allow our exit from the pension plan, which we were able to corporately execute and achieve, largely facilitated by a very favorable MBS market. Gains were extraordinary, as we have happily discussed numerous times in past board meetings. The MBS markets are not now nearly as generous today. On this chart, you see a curve presentation from 2016 to present, and we've taken out some of the maturities on treasuries, but this does show the 2, 5, 10, and 30-year treasury bonds over the last 4.5 years. Today's market is not paying up for the higher interest rate pools, largely stay there if you don't mind, Jeremy, please. Thanks. Today's market is not paying up for the higher interest rate pools, largely because of prepayment risk. So instead of selling at the highest cash price, we can sell at a lower cash price, but a higher servicing spread. What that means is we can continue to generate value for the corporation, but now it is in the form of the present value of future cash flows rather than current cash gains. These gains will not be as ridiculous as those of the past couple of years, but it keeps the loan generating machine operating and the mission continuing. The new metric will consume cash in the short run to be paid back in the future. We have sufficient internal resources and access to external resources to facilitate our loan production needs. We are working with our capital market partners on ways to maximize execution in this changed environment. Now the next chart, please, Jeremy. This chart shows 40 years of Treasury interest rates. The part to the right of the red vertical line is the period shown on the preceding chart. This chart shows how really low rates were the last few years compared to how high and very high they have been at times during the past 40 years. And I remember back in the early 80s, inflation was running very high. Interest rates, the prime rate got to 21.5%. I remember that because I had a client that borrowed at prime +5. And so he was a commercial borrower and borrowing at rates of 26.5%. But you can see that the rate environment that we've just come through, and most recently the last 2 years, that significant dip there, after rates had gone up a little bit after the Great Recession, then came piling back down during COVID, and now going back up. Clearly, there's been a lot of instability and movement in the rate market. But looked at over time, rates still are comparatively low compared to where they've been over the last 40 years. The one unusual dip there, the orange line there, there actually was no 30-year Treasury bond in existence during that 2 or 3, 4 year period. And so it drops down to 0 and then picks back up when the 30s are starting to get reissued. Our mortgage rates today are 5.5% for an FHA loan with down payment assistance. We are generating satisfactory reservations and adequate financial results at that rate. Not the great, stupendous rates that we've had the last 2 or 3 years, but adequate. As I said at the outset, I'm not an economist. I have no idea where rates will be tomorrow, much less next month or next year. What I think is that inflation will ease as the year progresses, that the Fed will continue to raise rates as they have indicated they will, and that the nation has a greater chance of recession than boom times. What I know is that we run the rate sensitive business, which is the loan production and servicing operations of the company based on where rates are today, and don't guess or speculate where future rates or inflation rates will be. The objective is always to ensure we will have the resources in the future to continue to fulfill the corporate mission. I am also not a political scientist. I have no idea what intermediate and long-term impact the Ukraine situation will have, but I do know that the short-term impact on a humanitarian scale is horrific. Be assured executive management is watching all these events very carefully. One final item, we did pay the full amount of the pension cessation in late March using internal resources accumulated over the past several years. We look forward to enjoying future financial performance in the years ahead without the pension anchor weighing us down. That concludes my remarks. Mr. Miller.
Thank you very much, Jim. We do appreciate that. Are there any questions that any of the members of the board have of Jim concerning this report or otherwise?
I have one, Jim. So even though the bond market has taken such a hit, and that hit was historically quick, really, your liquidity is still sound. You still feel good about your liquidity, and being able to finance what you need to finance in the coming months, right?
Yes, yes, sir. We have internal resources, and then we have significant lines of credit. And then, as I explained in our conversation with the other day, the lines of credit are available for peak financing needs, which fluctuate as we build our warehouse full of loans and then sell them into the secondary market. So we have permanent financing for say 5 to 10 year assets that use ongoing corporate liquidity and resources. And then, but for the immediate fluctuation, which is where the peaks and troughs happen on our cash needs, we have lines of credit for that purpose, and really look much more like a mortgage bank, a classic mortgage bank now that we've had to pay out so much of our resources for the pension, where we do have that sawtooth curve that shows peak usage and peak financing, and then every time we deliver our securities, it drops back down. But I am very comfortable with the liquidity position of the corporation to be able to finance, any term financing need from zero tomorrow to 30 years out. So, but we, and as I said in our meeting before, I spend more of my time looking 5 years out than I do to today or tomorrow, so that we can plan and put procedures or techniques in place that will allow us to continue to have the resources that we think we're going to need.
Well, those credit lines will help you from having to sell any bonds and taking losses on them. So you've been smart about getting those set up.
Yeah, and that's a good point. We have lost value on some of our longer term assets, primarily in the indenture, but with no intention of selling them. That's a paper loss, but not a cash loss. Exactly right.
I'll yield back to you, Winston.
Thanks, Mike, and thank you, Jim. Our next informational presentation is going to be by Molly Pate, who's the Managing Director for Communications and Marketing Services, and she's got some slides that'll be popping up here just in a minute. But by way of background, let me tell you a little bit about how we get to where we are for Molly to be making this presentation. As you will recall, just a few minutes ago, Wendy gave a description of the funding that was made available for ERA1, the Emergency Rental Assistance, which came to us very early of last year, and with a lot of money to try to get to as many households that were in need as we possibly could. And one of the challenges that Kentucky Housing faced, as well as other similar agencies to ours around the country, is how do you let the population that is in most need of this rental assistance fund and the landlords, how do you let them know and become aware of the availability of this rental assistance? And of course, we immediately did the usual thing, which is you sit down with the leadership, both at the governor's office and around the state and other positions, and plan press interviews with leadership in order to get the information out in the media. And you send out news releases, and you look at your social media ads and your other things that are naturally out there, and try to see how you can maximize that. In that process, I think we all realized that what we were doing, despite our best efforts, might not penetrate the market that we needed to penetrate in order to get the aid to where it needed to be. And so our communications folks, Molly and her team, decided to explore other options and see what else might be done to assist in this process. And in doing that, they sat down with several media companies that specialize in trying to get messages, marketing, advertising, and other messages to the precise targeted population that you're trying to affect with this. And in that process, they identified Gray Media, which is for those of us who live around here, it's Channel 3, I believe, and or they own Channel 3 out of Louisville, and they developed a marketing plan that was precise for this emergency rental assistance program. A lot of digital work as well as some other media work. And what Molly's going to do is she's going to tell you, I believe, about some of the work that went into doing that. But that's going to get us up to today and another media campaign that is totally unrelated to that sort of grew out of this experience that you all may be watching and seeing on Derby Day. So, Molly, you want to take it from here?
Yeah, thanks, Winston. So KHC has been working with Gray Media since February of 2021, and we began running advertisements for the Healthy at Home Eviction Relief Fund program in June of 2021. So we had a pretty conservative approach, like Jamie was talking about. We wanted to make sure that we got our backlog out, and then we could reach out to the people most in need. So Gray Media, which owns Wave 3 in Louisville and stations in Lexington, Cincinnati, Hazard, Bowling Green, Knoxville, Nashville, Evansville, Indiana, and a host of other places throughout the nation, worked with KHC to develop a conservative marketing approach that would target renters and landlords who may be in need of eviction relief based on their geography, their family size, their income level. So it was we started kind of scattershot, and then over the next several months, we refined it, and we added more campaigns, more key search terms, so that we could really hit the people most in need. We developed a 30-second television advertisement and ads that would show on streaming services, on web apps, on websites, and on other digital spaces. And in January of 2022, we began running a 30-second television commercial in Hazard and in Bowling Green to reach a larger audience, possibly a more rural population that had not seen our digital advertisements. So throughout the campaigns, we met monthly with Gray, and we've been able to track the effectiveness of the ads, including the zip codes where the ad is most popular. So we looked at census tracts, anything Wendy sent us. We tried to segment our campaign by that. So we at first had the zip codes that we thought would be most in need, and then we added a separate campaign for the zip codes that the census had identified. And then we also looked at what platform the viewer sees our advertisement. So, are they looking at a tablet app? Are they looking on the website? Are they looking on their desktop? Are they looking on a streaming service? So that we knew if we needed to, again, refine our campaign to target certain areas. We also looked at what time of day our ad is seen the most and on which apps it's most widely seen. So that really varied too, because we hit, say, the Super Bowl, or we would hit the Olympics. In the summer, it was really funny because we had a lot of people searching for crab recipes. So any, food-based website or app, it shot to the top of our list. And then in March of 2022, Gray approached KHC about expanding our marketing further by placing ads on Wave 3 stations during Derby week in the race. And Wave is the only station this year, I guess they rotate, Wave is the only station this year allowed in Churchill Downs the week leading up to the Derby. And so we're hoping that that drives more people to watch Wave's coverage during the next week. Internally, we have been talking about ways to increase our homebuyer marketing efforts, ways to reach a broader audience, and ways to communicate the benefits of our programs. And this just seemed to be a perfect opportunity. So in total, the package includes 24 30-second ads starting May 2nd, which should be Monday, and running through May 7th, including spots on newscasts, during the parade, the Great Bed Race, the Steamboat Race, the Oaks, and then the actual Derby. And it includes banner ads on NBC Sports, which is both the website and the app, which is broadcasting the Triple Crown, and then 30-second spots on the days of all three races. Excuse me. The Derby, either before or after the Derby, not during the actual 2 minutes leading up to it, 2 minutes of the race. And then also the Belmont Stakes and the Preakness. And instead of focusing on our Healthy at Home eviction relief program, which we have been doing for, like I said, over a year, we thought that this statewide stage would be the perfect opportunity to advertise our homeownership programs, including the newly increased down payment assistance program, which offers homebuyers up to $7,500 in down payment assistance. We just finished in March our lender awards, which Jamie can tell you all about. But when she and Jim increased that down payment assistance amount, people went bananas. And so we knew that that was a big selling point, so we really wanted to focus on that. And to drive visitors to the right spot, we created a slider on our website, and that's the first image that people see when they visit kyhousing.org. And it mirrors our banner ads and links directly to the future homebuyers page. And to track the effectiveness of the Derby marketing, we're monitoring the page traffic on our website. So not only the viewers to our homepage before, so we've been tracking it for the last 2 weeks. We're going to track it next week during the advertisement, and then for the next 4 weeks after that to see if there was an increase of people coming to kyhousing.org. And we're also tracking the click-throughs from that slider that we just showed you on our home ownership page, which includes both current homeowners and future home buyers, on our down payment assistance page, on our loan eligibility page, and our KHC approved lender page to see if the people are going to the sites and to the locations that we want, to the pages. And Wave 3 is also helping us monitor the click-through rates from the NBC Sports ads to our site. So when we show it on the television, we can't see who's coming directly to our site from television, but we can if it's showing on the Wave 3 website and then also on NBC Sports, both the website and the app. So the ad campaign marks a new beginning for KHC. We've never done something so public before, and we never normally would have entertained this ad opportunity. We would have just said, thanks Wave 3, but that's not really what we do. But it was a great deal for a super comprehensive package, and it's great exposure. So we're going to get at least 24 30-second spots over the course of a week. And then, like I said, banner advertisements on NBC Sports website and app, and then also on Wave 3's website. Also, we could cover it in our normal marketing budget, so it's not like an additional expense. Also, this ad is reaching our target market. So that's another reason it was a real selling point for us. Louisville is our largest market for home ownership, and many of our lenders are in Louisville. And our average home buyer last year made around $58,000, and you can see that's right in the middle of the pack. So people who make $30,000 to $75,000, this is really going to be popular among them, or they at least watch the Derby. So we're hitting the people who are potential home buyers. And then in 2020, among the hottest areas for home buying were Jefferson County and Hardin County, which are in the Wave 3 viewership area. And in 2020, the average age for our borrowers was 36. And so you can see that the 25 to 49 demographic, they tune into the Derby. So again, we're going to be hitting the people that we want. And more than 56% of the borrowers in 2020 were millennials, which again is a big portion. So we're again hitting that 25 to 49 range. More importantly, the Derby is popular among those who own their own homes and who have no children in the home and who are 50 to over 65. And that larger demographic of slightly older, more established viewers, maybe the relatives, the parents, the friends, the acquaintances, the church members of future home buyers. So they could see the ad during the Derby and urge potential home buyers, people who are considering purchasing a home, to research and consider our programs and products. Over the last 2 years, we've held our Lender Recognition Awards ceremony virtually and publicized it to our top lenders on social media. And during those times, we saw a great increase in weekly reservations. And we anticipate this commercial will have similar results. We hope it'll boost reservations as we head, excuse me, it's allergy season, head into prime home buying season, the spring and the summer, and then also National Homeownership Month in June. So we're really hoping to see an increase in our reservations. And Jamie Rice and Single Family Programs, who just presented, shared the commercial with our top lenders, and they had great feedback and thanked us for doing this because ultimately we're directing people to our site and then to consider KHC approved lenders, so this should increase their business, we hope. And we know this is a strategic move because for 50 years we've helped thousands of Kentuckians achieve homeownership, but there are still many people who don't know about our programs and our products and who would benefit from our down payment assistance, from reduced eligibility requirements, and from our competitive mortgages. So we hope the ad raises awareness about what we have to offer, and the ads and commercial were produced completely in-house, including a voiceover from one of our HHERF contractors. So we're really proud of what we've done because we're telling our own story in-house. We didn't have to farm it out. So it's a really grassroots project. So without further ado, I'm going to try to share my screen. Jeremy, it says that you've disabled participant screen sharing. But I could send you the link if that's easier.
Try it now.
Okay, thanks. Yay. And please let me know if you guys don't see it.
Here it comes.
Okay, 1 second. Let me make sure that you can. Let me make sure that you can hear it. Okay, again, if you can't hear it, please let me know.
And we're off. The race to homeownership can be dizzy, from looking at homes to making an offer and even negotiating the terms. So position yourself for success with Kentucky Housing Corporation. Our lending partners coach first-time home buyers, giving them access to down payment assistance and competitive mortgages that help them cross the finish line with the best possible deal. So don't fall behind. Start your search today by visiting kyhousing.org.
That was great, Molly.
Oh, thanks. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah, let me open up the floor and see if anybody has questions for Ollie about this. I want to congratulate Molly and her entire team for putting this together. It's very, very nice, very well done, and it is a new day and a new approach. In the past, our efforts at marketing our single-family mortgages have been, vis-a-vis the bankers and the lending folks out there, and this is really pretty much the first effort that we've made to do direct marketing, and but in turn directing the potential buyers to the same lender team that we've had in place for many years. We hope to continue to keep in place. So, Mike, if there's no further questions, I turn it back to you.
Well, I just want to commend you, Molly, and you and your folks for an excellent job. And really and truly, I think it's a really good time to get some marketing out there for KHC. And there are a lot of people that don't know about KHC and really don't understand what KHC does. So I think it's very timely, and I appreciate your all's efforts in doing it. And so thank you so much. So does any other members have any questions of Molly or Jim that they would like to ask at this point? And or any of the other staff? Jeremy, do you have anything you want to bring up?
You're not, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Any board members? I do want to say just one thing. I deal with a lot of farmers, and I am really concerned. Everybody knows that this Ukraine war has had an impact on us economically and energy-wise and militarily. Agriculturally, it's having the same impact. And I've got farmers who are telling me that fertilizer is now $1,100 a ton. Their seeds way up, while soybeans are $17 a bushel and corn's $8 a bushel. They are even questioning whether they should plant or not. So I think really concerns me that this thing could have a real impact on our food supply in the future. But anyway, that's just an old country banker's assessment. So any other members from the board have any questions or any comments they want to make before we adjourn? Winston, just be sure your people know how much we appreciate them. We know how hard you all work, and we appreciate all your efforts. So with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
We appreciate your support.
This is
All right, go
George.
ahead.
I'll move to adjourn.
Okay, George, thank you. Do I have a second?
This is Chad, I second.
Okay, Chad, thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you. Thank you all.